All right, we're ready to get started with the program, part of the evening. Good to see all of you here this evening. This is a great group. Lots of good conversation already this evening. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit about what's going on. It's kind of become a tradition of ours that we share a little bit about the department, some of the updates with the department. I'm here from a couple of students with the clubs. We're excited to give you an update in some of the pro-tech stuff that's going on too tonight, and then looking forward to having Dordt engineering alumnus Jonathan Gross really dig in with us in one of the main purpose of this group has been to continue to challenge each other in what it means to be disciples of Christ in engineering. And I think that Jonathan is definitely going to do that with us here this evening. So can you all hear me okay? Good? All right. So let me give you just a little bit of an update. There's actually a couple of people in this room that are on this picture. This was our 2017 graduating class. So I really just needed to fill the space in the slide, and I thought, oh, that's a pretty picture. But what I will mention on this picture is this is off of our Facebook page. If you're not like Ethan and you actually use Facebook a little bit, but I say that actually very humbly because my wife is the one who handles Facebook in our marriage. So she tells me, oh, somebody did that on Facebook, and then I go take a look. But no, we have a fairly active Facebook page for the department, Dordt College Engineering Department, that throughout the year we post pictures from class, updates on events like this that are going on. So feel free to keep an eye on us that way. But it's a good time of year to reflect on the class from last year, where they're at now, how they're serving the Lord in a variety of ways, and sort of just getting started with this year's seniors and looking forward to how that happens every year. I'm just part of that great cycle that we're a part of here and that the Lord leads. So let me share. I'm not going to spend hardly any time on this because you've all seen a lot of this just now, but certainly one of the updates is that Phase 2 is complete out of the Science and Technology Center. So there's not a whole lot there that's specifically engineering space, but actually this little room is. I don't know if any of you saw it when you were touring around, but we do have an engineering conference room again. For a few years we didn't have a dedicated engineering conference room space, so we've already put this room to good use, and it's in part of that footprint of the Phase 2 construction. And the skywalk is actually becoming very convenient, right? I sort of had to learn new paths a little bit, right, from the spaces, but it is really nice to be able to have the campus center, science building, education, classroom building, them all tied together, and it will be even nicer in a month or two, right? We're getting to that. First frost was last night, I think, right? So we're getting into that time of year. One of the big things that I've been spending a lot of time on over the past year or so is our ABET accreditation. We just finished a few weeks ago the every 6-year ABET visit. So had 3 evaluators here from Texas and Virginia and South Carolina. Where's Auburn at? I should know the Alabama, yes. So, but here in Sioux Center and walking through our program with us after reviewing the self-study report that we submitted over the summer. The visit went very well. The group was they were a group that you could tell they cared about what we were doing here, and they gave us some good feedback. They give an initial report, but really official reports happen next year. That's part of the ABET process. But it was a very encouraging visit. They do mention if there are going to be any deficiencies or weaknesses, which are the 2 highest levels of things that you may need to address, and we had no deficiencies or weaknesses. So that was really a blessing for us. That is nice for me to not have to be worrying about addressing weaknesses right now, right? Because we'd have to be following up right now in that process. Yeah, they appreciate, as I think ABET always does, they sense the the unity of this place, right? How the college has a common mission, and I think they sort of get that engineering lives in a unique environment here that we embrace where we're at and have a shared mission and express appreciation for that. So their one concern was on oh. It was a joint effort though, so I put a lot of time into it, but the whole department, I mean, one of the reasons it works for us is that all the faculty care about it, right? I mean, that's another one of the unique things about this place. I know at a place like Iowa State, many faculty wouldn't even give a time of day to help with ABET at all, right? So everybody pulls their part, and it's yeah, neat to have the joint effort. But it is nice to be through that. So I'll share a little bit more later now how we kind of are at a state where we can start thinking about where we go again from here, sort of a new assessment cycle and process. I want to share a little bit on the personnel side. First, I have this nice big picture of Jeff because he wasn't able to be here, so I'll say he may not have gotten quite as big of a picture here, but Jeff Gladstone is our newest faculty member. He moved from Sacramento, so Northern California. He's pretty much been in California his entire life, so him and his wife. So quite a move for them to come here to Sioux Center, as is usually the case for new faculty, whether they're 30 years in the industry or only 2 years in the industry before they come to Dordt, he's really busy. His office is right across from me, and certainly he's working hard, but it's wonderful to have him here. He has actually expertise in, especially in FEA, finite element analysis work, and particularly in the aerospace industry. So actually a really unique expertise on the structural mechanics side. So really neat to have him here. The sophomores are getting to know him quite well right now in statics. So yeah, Nicholas is nodding his head. So so we're excited to have him here. I mentioned last year that this was going to be a year of transition for us because Doug DeBoer and Nolan Van Galen both are half-time teaching this semester. So it's sort of our first walk into what that looks like. We're working through that transition, and they're very much involved with the department activities yet, but we're sort of working on how that teaching plays out as we look to fill some of those gaps. And I also was going to mention that Nathan Miller has stepped in as the lead for the construction management. So the construction management continues to kind of not have its own department. It sort of resides between business and engineering. Engineering has sort of always led that. Joel Sycama, who you'll be hearing from here in a little bit, was the kind of the main point person on construction management for a number of years. With his move over into ProTech, Nathan Miller has stepped into that spot. So some of the transitions. And related to the one concern actually that ABET had for us, the only one they document the concern was that your faculty are stretched pretty thin. You guys do a lot, and they said it's not a problem yet, but if anything happens, it could be a problem, right? You're sort of just hanging in there. So we're looking to hire, spread the word, right? We would love to find that reformational engineer who has a heart for Dordt and wants to come and teach with us. We have advertised particularly for electrical and for chemical. I think those are certainly particular needs, but really the most important thing still is that person who gets what Dordt is about, right, and who wants to come here and serve. So we do have some needs in physics, also on the construction management side too. So certainly talk with us if you have any inclination of possible leads in that direction. We would love to hear from you. Wanted to share, this might be a little bit out of order, but I think it fits with this group really well. Many of us were involved with the 2017 Christian Engineering Conference here over the summer. This is a group that Dordt has been heavily involved with for quite some time. It's an every other year conference. All Christians who really want to wrestle with what it means to teach engineering. It's been heavily focus on the academic side and teaching engineering, but also doing engineering Christianly, right? And we actually had 2 Dordt alumni, non-Dordt faculty, staff alumni that came this year to the conference. I know I kind of pushed, I think, this group to think about that and would encourage you to continue to think about it. And it's always a really rewarding time to spend some time together, right? But also with other brothers and sisters in Christ who care about thinking Christianly about engineering, right? It's a group of folks from Calvin and Dordt and George Fox and Geneva and some of those other sort of CCCU types of schools. And usually we'll get a couple of folks from universities as well who are Christians and serving the Lord in those sorts of places, right? And to be able to come together. So it's every other year. The next one is 2019 in Tampa. So if you're interested in thinking about a trip to Tampa, so keep it in mind. So many of us will probably be there. And also one of the things that I put on here was Christian Engineering Society. This has just been a conference that's met every other year, but actually for the first time we've actually formed a Christian Engineering Society now. So it makes up most of the participants that have been part of this group, but I'd encourage you to think about being involved with that group too. So Christian Engineering, I think it's .org, but if you Google Christian Engineering Society, you'll find the website and all the proceedings from the conference, but also this group of not only teachers, right, and instructors, but engineers who want to think Christianly about engineering, sort of the things that we've been talking about here. Gotta watch my time. One last thing before we do a few club updates. I don't always share this, but every year we go through a book discussion as a department as a way to kind of stay grounded and challenge each other perspectively. And this year, we're actually going through the Exercising Our Worldview, which is a collection of essays that many of you have seen, some of them, right, and pieces of them. We use many of them in class, the DLV case, right, that many of you were aware of, but that, of course, came from Charles Adams. Many of them originated as the plumb lines in KDCR, and this great collection of pushing us to exercise our worldview in engineering and many other ways. And one of the reasons I mentioned this, we've already had a couple of great discussions over this, but there's been some talk about developing an essay collection in the spirit of exercising our worldview from this group, right? And those of us who have been influenced by Charlie and who can do similar sorts of thinking in some of the issues, around some of the issues of a new generation, right? New experiences, a new generation. So think about that. If any of you kind of feel pricked to push in that direction and help in that direction, we're pretty excited about that idea. It's not taking form yet, but we certainly would love to see something like that happen. All right, I'm going to let the club leaders come up. Maybe I'll come up at once and give a really brief update on what's going on in some of the club activities. So looks like ASME is first, but all of you can just maybe come up at once so that we can keep things moving along.
Well, good evening. I'm Nicholas Caparis. I am, wait. Got it. Well, good evening. I'm Nicholas Caparis. I'm the president of ASME, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on some things that we did last year and some things we're hoping to do this year. One of the things that we did last year was we built a valveless jet engine, a pulse jet. We met on on Saturday mornings just for a couple hours, just kind of working on designing one of these things and actually getting it to work. It was definitely a very challenging project, finding that you got to find the stoichiometric ratio of the gas to air to burn in the combustion chamber. But it was just a good challenge and a good way to kind of get to know like some of the upperclassmen and underclassmen as well. Another thing that we did last year was a Rube Goldberg challenge. It's basically like how complex you can make the simplest tasks, like switching on and off a light. Like a group will be assigned to a room in the science building with a bunch of random like everyday objects, and then they have to try to figure out how the most complex way to shut off a light switch or some other task like that. Another thing we're hoping to do this year is ASME has a kind of organization-wide design competition. And for the past couple of years, we have not been involved in that, but we would really like to get that started again so that we can kind of pass that on and make that more of a tradition. I know like ASCE does things like the concrete canoe, and we'd love to get some of those types of things going for ASME. This year it's a robot pentathlon, so programming a robot, designing it so it can do a variety of different tasks. So that's something that we're hoping to do this year. We got some freshmen with some good experience in robotics, so we're hoping to kind of get them on board, and we're really hoping to do that. Another thing that we like to do is service projects. Last year we did one with JFA, Justice for All, and they're an organization. One of the things they do to raise money for their organization is they build spec houses, and they get all the contractors to donate the work, so then whatever money that they make for selling the house, so like a normal homeowner, then they can use to fund their organization. So last year what we did is we painted the exterior for a Saturday, just a really neat way to help out with a local organization that's making a difference in the community here. We actually are hoping to do something similar yet in October. They're looking to get some siding on another house yet, so we're hoping to help them out with that. Another thing we did was there was a grain bin that a local farmer had taken down. They didn't need it anymore, but it was going to get shipped to Laos to use there for their farming operations down there. So we helped them load that onto a shipping container. So that was another thing that we did. It's just a neat opportunity too to, like, when you're here, there's not a lot of like opportunities for you to like work hard like outside, like doing something like that. So it's a really neat opportunity to get a group together and go do something to serve. And yeah, it was just a great extension of what we're trying to do as engineers here at Dordt. Another thing that we do is shop certification. That's just for if you want to use the shop tools in the engineering lab, that goes through us as well. So that's kind of a brief update on ASME, and thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jason Vanderwoude, and I'm the president of the IEEE Club. IEEE hosts elections in January, so I've been president for a little over a semester now. And when I began as president, we decided as a club that we were going to start on a single project, and that project was a quadruped robot. A previous student who's now graduated had started on it as a summer project, and he'd bought a Raspberry Pi and some servo motors and didn't get much farther than that. So we inherited some parts, and this is what we're at so far. Actually, this is at the end of last year. So last year we did some 3D printing, learned how to use Dordt's 3D printers. We modeled the body down in the workspace, and then we've done some programming on the Raspberry Pi. At the beginning of this year, we started trying to take off a lot of the wires that we've got there, so we got it hooked up on the wireless, and we can program it over the network. The current thing that we're working on is getting a Wii remote hooked up to it with Bluetooth so we can control it in that way. And hopefully it's kind of a wide open project that we can continue to do a lot of other stuff. We've talked about maybe adding a webcam and doing some live video feed or some image recognition, things like that. So it sounds like hopefully this project will continue on after this December when somebody else takes the presidency, and hopefully the IEEE can keep working on this project.
Okay, so my name is Ryan Pazier. I'm the president of ASCE. Things that we like to do is, one thing that's really come up in the last few years is that we've been able to foster a really good relationship with the Iowa section of ASCE. You get some really good professional interaction that way. We have fewer members than we've had in years past. We do like to use service projects like ASME. We have the Adopt a Highway. We do that once a semester. We go and we pick up garbage along 2 miles of Highway 75. South of Sioux Center, and we tend to have bigger projects. So we head up the concrete canoe team, and we have sent off, I think, 8 successful canoes now, working on our 9th, which has been a really good design challenge for students as we've been able to learn about concrete and some of those challenges. The other thing we've started in the last couple years is we've had our steel bridge design team. It was started 2 years ago as a senior design project. It went on last year and was just a offshoot of ASCE, and this year it's again headed up by one of the competitors from last year, and they've really taken on quite a large team for this year. I'm really looking forward to that.
So my name's Laura Bairden, and I'm a co-president of our Women in Science and Engineering Club here at Dordt. The other co-president, Gala, is a psychology and biology major, so she's not here tonight. But really, the main goal of this club is just to build community among women in the engineering and science majors. Our thing that we do mostly is we have a meeting on Tuesday night that's just drop-in. A lot of times we do homework. Sometimes it just ends up being more talking and stuff, just so you can get to know other women in similar majors as you. It helped me, I know, a lot as a underclassman to get to know upperclassmen and build kind of that support system. And we also do some fun things. We usually go to Pumpkin Land every year just to get off campus, and we're hoping to have a couple speaker events later on in the year as well. So.
Yeah, as our numbers have grown a little bit, it gives us the opportunity to have a little bit more club activity going on too. And those clubs are just excellent ways, as you heard there, to get into real projects and outside of the classroom and face a lot of the engineering challenges that don't always come up in regular classroom work, but do in those club projects. Actually, I'll mention one thing really briefly related to the club stuff. Next week here on campus, we have the opportunity to host the ASCE joint meeting with the Iowa section and the South Dakota section both. We actually have in our possession a DVD of the ASCE movie Dream Big, which is only in IMAX and Science Centers right now, and we're going to show that in 1606 at 7:15, totally free. So you won't get an IMAX, but you'll save $10 or $15 or $20, right, that you would pay to see that somewhere else. But actually, it's an open invitation. You're welcome to come. I don't think we'll pack the house, so there will be space available. We actually have a meeting with the group earlier in the day, but then 7:15 is when the film showing is. So if you're interested in a little bit more information about that, feel free to email me. Actually, if you want to join the dinner beforehand, you could. That's probably $15. I'm going to be here on campus too for professionals. The ASC section pays for the students to come. They don't pay for practicing engineers to come, but you're invited. So that's kind of an exciting event happening next week. Let me close with just a couple of items related to the society itself. The mission of the society, I think we've kind of gelled around this twofold mission in the last couple of years, and we really feel like this still gets at what the society is trying to accomplish. One of the main purposes is to network and challenge and encourage each other as brothers and sisters in Christ who care about engineering, right, and who work in engineering-related areas. But then also an equally probably important part of the mission is to keep a connection to Dordt engineering, right? So for our alumni who are all over the country to be able to provide a venue to give back a little bit and support the program here at Dordt. And we have a couple of exciting initiatives this year that I wanted to share with you. One of them is that we are going to start with a regular newsletter. In fact, you have the first edition of that in front of you, and that was the summer edition. We're thinking that we're going to have typically a summer, a fall, and a spring edition. So the fall edition will probably be coming out mid-November or something like that. And we would really like to have alumni profiles and stories and company profiles and things like that in there. So it's sort of a challenge for you to and not a very difficult way, but we're all busy. It takes a little bit of time to be able to say, hey, this might be something that I'd be interested in sharing with the Dordt alumni group, right? And so if you're interested in that, let me know. If you're interested in just submitting a paragraph, right, a story, or if you're interested to maybe try to solicit or think about things that might be interesting to have in the newsletter to be more involved in that capacity, let us know as well. And actually, there's a survey that at the end, I'll have you think through a little bit too, that lays out a little bit more what sort of opportunities there might be for you to be involved in those sort of ways. One other really exciting opportunity to be involved, which is a pretty low time commitment for those of you who live close by, probably a pretty big time commitment if you're flying in from Washington to do it. But if you live in the area, we're pretty excited about the idea of having alumni get involved with their senior design gate reviews. So it's most of you probably remember the practice. I'm not sure how long that practice has been around, but definitely since I was here in the late 90s, where partway through the year you have to present your project, and the faculty basically say, give you the okay that, oh, you're heading in a good direction, or you might need to pick up the pace a little bit, right? And here's some advice, some things that you might want to think about. We think alumni could be a great voice in that discussion, and with very minimal prep on the alumni's part, right? Actually, it's best to have almost a neutral voice coming in early on, right? You haven't seen what's been going on. You just sort of see the snapshot of the project. So we generally have done those in mid-February, although we're thinking the schedule, we're changing the schedule a bit, and we might actually be interested in doing that already in mid-December. We're going to kind of think through where that's at, but at the end of the first semester. So that is another opportunity that I'd really encourage you to think about. I think it could be a great way to have a little bit of interaction, and you get to meet the students that way too, right? In a little bit of a different capacity, again, sort of see what they're working on, and maybe somebody who might be interested in working for you, right, after they're done. So it's a neat way to kind of make a little bit deeper connection. I do want to certainly give thanks to, right now, our committee makeup of the helping behind the scenes for events like this is right here on the screen. Most of these guys are all here, I think, except for TJ wasn't able to make the trip tonight. But and thanks to Travis for live streaming tonight. You saw that note, but we have been live streaming the presentation part of this for our alumni who are in other parts of the country and can then hopefully tune in. So maybe we can continue to let this be a way that not just here in Sioux Center, but that Dordt network across the country can be involved. So thanks to all of these folks for putting time and helping with an event like this. Let's give them a hand. All right, so I'm going to hand it over to ProTech, and you can get an update from ProTech.
So yeah, it's an exciting opportunity for us to talk about both the engineering department, but also things that the engineering department has really laid the groundwork for. And one of those things is ProTech. ProTech is a new set of 2-year technical programs, an associate science degree. One of them is in manufacturing technology, and another one is in farm operations and management. So today, Oscar Rodriguez and I, Oscar is our manufacturing technology professor, we're going to tell you a little bit about some of these new exciting programs. But before I dig into it, I want to give you a big picture, quick overview of what it involves. And I'll focus more specifically on the manufacturing technology side, because I think that's probably, well, some of the folks who you work with most closely, and as I look around the room, some of the folks that you are going to be hiring as interns yet this fall. Within the manufacturing technology program, it's really in pairing with what Ethan has said, it's a holistic technician education, really that fits with today's and the new face of manufacturing. Rather than siloing different fields away from each other, say just welding or just machining or just programming, ProTech lays a broad foundation in manufacturing, touching on electrical and controls, machining, fabrication, and also production management in order to create a graduate who's well equipped to work in the manufacturing businesses that link these different processes together rather than siloing them into different places. And so, but in addition, what we do is we take this foundation, in this broad foundation in manufacturing, and give students an opportunity to specialize. And we do that through a set of internships. And it's a really unique partnership that we've developed with the local businesses here in Sioux Center, in Sioux County, and throughout the nation, really. Because with the students, we work hard getting them ready in the first half of the semester. But then, after the first half of the semester and throughout the rest of their time here at Dordt, what they do is they go and 2 days a week, all day, they work out in internships. Because we recognize that there's so many good things going on here in Sioux County and in the businesses that you represent in terms of how you develop people and how you take a Christian perspective and use it to influence the way that you do business. And so what we're doing is taking what we do here at Dordt in developing people, what you do in your businesses to develop people, and bringing it together to give somebody the opportunity to grow even further as they seek to serve God where He's called them to serve. Now, I'm going to introduce you to Oscar in just a minute here, and he'll have an opportunity to tell you a little bit about his background. But before I do that, what I'd like to do is give you a little bit of perspective of, well, where do we stand with this exciting initiative? This is our inaugural year of the program, and we're really blessed to say that we've got a strong cohort of manufacturing technology students, 8 students, and a strong cohort of firearm operations and management students. The demographics, just to give you a highlight there, 3 women and 26 men. I see an area for improvement there. But what I think is very interesting, though, is that 80% of the students come from more than 500 miles away. And that's very unique for a technical program. But it also really matches with the unique character of Dordt College in terms of attracting people from all over the United States and even Canada and other countries. There's also, I think, a story in here of this data of growing momentum. You can see that in last year with some of our conversion rates in terms of, who inquired and became a student, who visited and became a student, who got accepted and became a student. It really shows a lot of strong interest, so that when somebody does, check out this program, there's a high probability that they start to convert into students. And as you compare those numbers, in 2018, we're already up to those 100 inquiries. And so that's an indication that already we're building a lot of strong momentum for growth in this program. And I think, well, I was just talking with Kyle beforehand. I think there's going to be some great opportunities for collaboration between our manufacturing students and our engineering students as well. Because it's really, we recognize that God gave us all different gifts, and that diversity is something that we celebrate, right? And so by working together, some of the folks who are good at processes, some of the folks who are good at working with their hands, alongside some of the engineers who are good at some of the analytical aspects, the strength of it, the appropriate material selection and things like that, I think it creates a great opportunity to make Dordt College even more holistic and reflecting what's happening out in business. So now let me introduce you to Oscar Rodriguez. I'll give you a little bit of time to talk a little bit about yourself, but I want to tell you a story a little bit about God's providence, because Oscar, he's not originally, from this area. He's a native of Honduras, as you can see, but he actually spent some time here at Dordt. And he had the opportunity to take classes from Nolan and to really catch the vision for what we're doing here at Dordt. And then he wasn't able, just from different circumstances, in order to continue his education here at Dordt, but he's always been keeping in touch with us. And over the years, he's taught at different institutions, most recently somewhere pretty prestigious, sorry, I'm Canadian. But now he's here at Dordt, and he's really taking time to build up this manufacturing program and equip our students to go out and serve God in that area. But I'll let you talk a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Yul. So before I forget, David Lamers actually has been one of the collaborators with the manufacturing. He's actually doing a part that I'm not familiar with, the welding part of manufacturing. And also the engineering department has been great to provide us a space. Ethan keeps talking about our identity. I think we need to have that at one point, but we've been collaborating. Thank you for doing that. As far as diversity, I always say this, the U.S. is the most diverse place, right? 50% women, 50% men, about 17% Hispanic, 15% African American, and there's other minorities. And I know Joel's excited about the minority. We have representation in our program, but we're not there yet. So you help us collaborate, right, to pass the word for this program so we can attract people of color, so we can attract more women, so we can be more diverse. I think we need to do that. A little bit about my background. I had an early career in manufacturing. I did what was called advanced manufacturing in the early 80s. and I became an electromechanical tech person for Pepsi Cola back in my country. So that was even before going to college. So I accumulated a few years doing that, then went to college, came here. I was able to complete my degree somewhere else, and returned to Honduras, saw a great need in the area of automation, robotics, and controls. Had a consulting firm for about 4 years. Great school. Those of you that have done consulting know that you learn a lot as you do consulting. And eventually came back to the U.S. in 2001, attended an invitation to help the Indiana higher education system, including both the IB Tech and the State University. Then from there to West Point. And I didn't think I was going to be here at Dordt, but Joel has described it. I think what touched my heart is to recognize that at one point in my life, I had an entry level to the technical and Christian life. And when I saw the ProTech initiative in the manufacturing, I thought, you know, there's got to be a number of Oscars that I want to go and help. And so my plans was not exactly being here, but in fact, I kind of wrestled with the idea when we had conversation with Joel, and upon a good meeting with the Lord, he said, I want you to go this way. So I'm very pleased to be here. My wife Margie is with me. We have 4 grown-up children, different places, and we are here to be able to help contribute and serve the way many of you have done it. And so I don't know what else I can say, Joel. That's it. Sure. Yeah.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Tom Calderossi just for a minute too, because I think ProTech is manufacturing is also this larger thing as well. And on Tom's side, he's teaching in the farm operations and management program. And so he comes from a trucking and farming background. And I think with him, you can see that on the picture. He just loves getting his hands on, right? And he's working with the students, doing things like electrical work, doing things like farm maintenance and repair, doing things like helping students become proficient at backing up trailers. Because really with ProTech, we're equipping people to go out and serve in those hands-on operational roles. I do want to tell you a little bit about some of the internships, and I'll let Oscar talk a little bit about some of the manufacturing internships.
So from 94 and 95 that I was here, I also had concerns about the local industry before I actually came here. And I've been talking to some of you how impressed I am to see the technology in many of the manufacturing places. So we got great connections here locally. And as you may know, many of these companies use a lot of automated systems, a lot of advanced processes, a lot of new modern ways to do quality, new modern ways to do maintenance of systems and so on and so forth. So we have many of them on board, including the list that we have here, and a few potential others we've been talking, right? And they are willing and able to take at least one intern this time. And I think we're in a good position that there's only 8 students. They actually interview for more than one company. And some of them are so good that they might have more than one choice, which is good. But this is the list that we have. And so some of you potentially will be in the future partners. So keep in communication with us so you can think about how you can actually collaborate with us as we have more graduates. I'm sure the next cohort is going to be larger. We're going to have more people, and there's going to be more demand for that.
The agriculture side, that's a little bit of a different story. And so I've just grouped them into overall categories. And I think overall, though, what I can say is that for the community here, and it's reflected in you as well, just the how eager people are to partner with Dordt College, right? Rather than working in separation from each other, working together. I want to give you a little bit of a hint, though, towards the future, because ProTech isn't simply about 2 programs, right? It's about equipping people to serve in these technical areas as professionals in all areas of life, because really Dordt's mission, that's what it's about, equipping the people to serve in all areas of life where God calls them. And I've given you just a couple highlights of some of the things that we're considering in the future as really, we're looking to fill this hole in Christian education, because for those who really do desire to work in these areas and feel called to work in these areas, there isn't a Christian education pathway available right now. I also want to mention a couple needs, a couple things for you to ponder and keep in mind, because as we're going forward, we'll need some new facilities. We already have some really strong facilities like what you saw today, but also looking to expand our facilities to really meet these students' needs. We're doing some things here on campus, doing some things out at the Ag Stewardship Center, but also equipment. And many of you in the different places where you work perhaps have equipment that is still state of the art, but perhaps not used anymore for the processes that you need. And that's the sort of thing that we look to, hey, if you have something that you'd be willing to send our way, these are things that would be really valuable for our students. And we've already seen that happening just this week with is it 5-axis robotic that had robot with vision incorporated and all that sort of stuff. But it's some really exciting things for our students to work with. There's opportunities for scholarships as well that can be industry funded, but I think probably for this group, what I'd say is you are active members in your communities, right? That's why you're here, that's why you're part of the engineering society. You see that bigger vision. And so as you're in your communities and as you touch base with people who you would say, hey, you could really benefit from either a Dordt engineering degree or a Dordt manufacturing degree or an agriculture degree, pass those names on. Send them to Oscar, send them to me, because, and we will, well, we won't do our best to follow up. We will aggressively follow up with these people, because that's what it takes to start off a new program. And overall, I'd like to conclude, and I think Oscar would echo this as well, just to say thank you for your support of ProTech in these startup years. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely some exciting synergies with ProTech and engineering, and it'll be exciting to see what the Lord has in store in that regard. All right, so we are ready for our main presentation for the evening. So I'll ask Jonathan to come forward. I have to switch over to the other presentation here, so you can take a minute or so to catch your breath, and then we'll get started. Gross did travel quite some distance. I think you actually might have the distinction of being our furthest traveled speaker. Mike is further traveling for being here in the room, but as far as a speaker, I think for the event, actually, we easily have the most miles traveled for the group in this room, I think, this year that we've ever had, so that's exciting too. The word got out in the Defender Days information. That helps a little bit, right? We made it on the Defender Days brochure, so we're moving up in the world. But no, we're very excited to have Jonathan Gross here, Dordt Engineering alumnus, and actually classmate of Michael Boss, I understand. I wasn't aware of that, so Mike came up from Kansas City too, here to be here today. So Jonathan, I will just let you take it over and introduce yourself. So thank you for being here.
Thanks very much, Justin. It's great to be here this evening and talk a little bit about really what my perspective has been in the 27 years, the things that I've experienced as an engineer, and the technology that I've worked with over the past 27 years since I was a student here. And I'm anxious to share some of my insights with you. Keep in mind that this will be one perspective, right? But I hope in this that we can at least have a discussion together about where some of the strategic opportunities are in terms of how we think about the influence of technology on culture. I'll do that by starting by describing a little bit about who I am and where I've been for these past 27 years. Talk a little bit about the technology that I've been involved with, not really at a technical level, but more at an observational level. And then talk a little bit about, at least from my point of view, where some of the opportunities are within technology today, but not only within technology, but perhaps some opportunities that exist today culturally, philosophically, from a worldview point of view, that maybe, if we're optimistic, provide an opportunity for us to engage in ways that potentially we wouldn't have the opportunity to do some 25 or 30 years ago. So I know that, I think if I'm correct, 2 years ago, the topic here was on leadership. Great topic. I think last year, if I understand correctly, the topic was on calling. And I hope that if I'm successful this evening, that maybe, especially some of you students, might think about whether, based on our discussion here this evening, perhaps God is calling you to a field or to work in areas which, at least I believe, will have significant impact on our culture in the coming decades. So who am I? I graduated from Dordt College, BSEE in 1990. I went to the University of Colorado on a teaching assistantship and then a research assistantship in Boulder, Colorado. Graduated there with my master's degree in '92 in the area of signal processing and communication systems. I then spent 5 years at the University of Texas, a non-teaching department there called Applied Research Labs, basically doing performance analysis for the Department of Defense on sonar algorithms and the performance assessment of those. I could tell you stories about being deep underground in Western Europe and spending a summer on the Mediterranean. And anyway, interesting field. Then I moved from Austin, Texas to Phoenix, Arizona, where I've been. I still continue to live. I was with Motorola from '97 to 2011, kind of switched careers from Department of Defense sort of stuff to communication systems. And specifically when I hired on at Motorola, it was to work on the performance analysis of the Iridium system. The Iridium system was a network of 66 low Earth orbit satellites that were designed. Now keep in mind, this is way back, guys. Right? This is before everyone did not have cell phones at that point. There was not ubiquitous coverage over much of certainly the US, if not the world, from a cellular point of view. So the vision of Motorola at the time was to deploy this network of satellites to provide cellular communications to every square inch of the globe. They weren't exactly Kuyperian when they said that, but they definitely used the every square inch thing. So that was a phenomenal technical success, disastrous business case behind it, because we totally failed to anticipate how fast cellular technology, terrestrial-based technology, could be developed and deployed. So in any case, I've been working in the cellular field as a systems engineer, system design and architecture with Motorola, and then Motorola was bought out by Nokia. I've been with them for the past 6 years. I met my wife here, Lisa Klein, class of '92. We have 4 kids. One graduated from Dordt a couple years ago. She's a nurse in Salt Lake City, labor and delivery. And I have 2 students currently, 2 children currently who are students at Dordt. Ashlyn, who's a junior, studying elementary ed, and Jared, who's a freshman. I'm not exactly sure what he's studying. I don't know why this is garbled on the screen, but in any case, I'm an active member of the Phoenix URC. And my Engineering 390 paper back in the day, okay, you're not going to believe this. It's tax time, right? So I'm searching through my file cabinet. And back of the file cabinet, this is a number of months ago, I stumbled across this folder that said Engineering 390 on it. I'm like, man, pull this thing out. I have not looked at this paper since 1990. But the title of that paper was Normative Automation, A Christian Perspective. Dr. Charlie Adams was a professor. I got an A on that thing, man. I read it, and I'm just going to be transparent here. As I read that paper, my thinking was, dang, man, it's a pretty good paper. I used to be a pretty smart guy, but the pace, I'm getting a little bit off track here, but the point of that is, to you students who are here, right, this is a rich time of life. Don't lose sight of that. The rate at which you learn during these 4 years at Dordt, it'll quite likely be unparalleled in terms of your path. So soak it all up. And even if you, hopefully you're not like me and you bury the papers in the back of the file cabinet, but even if you pull those out years from now, you will be reminded of how much you learned here and how good it was. Okay, enough of that. Nokia. So I'm not going to go into this, but there's 2 themes here in the companies that I've spent the last 20 years working for. One is this. The mission in Nokia is all about a connected world. Okay? Motorola, communications leader to advance the way the world connects. That's what I've been a part of in a very small way, right? I make no claim to having a huge impact on this, but this is how I have spent my career, connecting the world, and connecting the world especially through cellular data. Okay, so what I'd like to do then is talk a little bit again about the last 27 years or so in terms of where we have been, and again from my technical viewpoint, a little bit on where, at least from my point of view, where we see the challenges moving forward in this space, and then especially, you know, what should we do? This is this presentation, by the way, for me is very different because I get paid, right? My role is to provide answers, right? My customers expect answers. My design teams expect answers. My management really expects answers, right? I'm not here to provide answers. I'm here to provide some insights and a whole lot of questions. And I'm excited, you know, already I've been blessed by talking to a number of you, and it's a neat opportunity to do this. You mentioned earlier the book that you're going through this year, Exercise in Our Worldview. You're going to see a number of quotes from essays in that book this evening. I was given that book a couple years ago, and I recently reread it, and I was very blessed by it once again. And I came across this one, which really did strike me, especially in the context of this evening, that there will come a time where you will see that the Lord has used you, that the world is different because you have been here, but it will never occur because you do it on your own. We always serve as members of Christ's body, so don't lose touch with the fellow servants you are privileged now to know. And I think that's the key thing here this evening, to reestablish some connections with some of you, and to discuss how together, where we see the opportunities to impact culture around us through technology. So real quickly, I'm going to go through a few charts that just describe my world. I started working on cellular systems back in between this 2G and 3G timeline on the chart. Back then, link speeds were about 64 kilobits per second for cellular. The Iridium system, in fact, was capable of delivering about 64 kilobits per second when I first began on cellular. It wasn't very long before we were working on 3G systems at 2 megabits per second. Now we're working on 4G, and we have this thing called 4.9G right now that I'm heavily involved in, where our link speeds are up around a gigabit per second to your cell phone. So it's all about data right now, as much data as you can possibly consume in the palm of your hand. Believe it or not, when I was a student here, this is so embarrassing, the internet did not exist. I'm officially an old guy. But you can see on the left-hand side a chart that shows the internet users globally, how that has grown in the past 2 decades, from almost nothing to now about 50% of the world's population has internet access. You see data traffic on the right. The blue line is the growth in data traffic, petabytes per month, over the past, 20 years or so, 25 years. The orange line is the curve that I'm on. That's mobile data traffic and how that's grown. 1999, I graduated in 1990. 1999, 4% of the world's population was online. 2017, 49%. There's an estimated 8.4 billion connected things that are in use worldwide. That means connected to essentially the internet from a data point of view. There's only about 7.4 billion people on the planet. So that's the internet. Also in those decades, explosive growth in mobile connectivity. So this is a chart that projects out to 2020. In 2020, I think today there's about 4.9 billion people with mobile phones. 2020, 5.4 billion. That'll be 69% of the global population. That's the crossover point where there will be more people with mobile phones than there are with electricity at home. Already, there are vastly more people at 4.9 billion with mobile phones than there are with running water, 3.5 billion. Okay, let that sink in for a second. Vastly more people with a mobile phone than have running water. How these people are going to charge these phones, I'm not exactly sure. I guess you charge them at work or something, I don't know. But anyway, there was recently a survey that was done amongst millennials maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't, where a question was asked, if you could choose one of two things, only one, right? You can choose either to have a car, transportation, or you can choose a mobile phone. Amongst millennials, the vast majority said, can't live without my mobile phone, gotta have it, I'll take the bus, right? Okay. Today, 2007 was the birth of the iPhone. Today, 1.9 gigabytes average data usage per subscriber. I have a daughter here at Dordt that blows that number away, but in any case, by 2022, another 5 years, expected to reach 11 gigabytes per month. Okay, this has led, all this mobile connectivity has led to an explosive growth in always being connected. Okay, very different world than when I was a student at Dordt. Now, this is the last couple years of the amount of time spent on your mobile device per day. Okay, as of about a year ago, 300 minutes. This is amongst the US population. 300 minutes, that's 5 hours per day on your mobile phone. This is a breakdown by application. Very little of this anymore is mobile browsing. It's all about apps, it's about social media, it's about entertainment, it's about gaming. With all this growth in mobile data, one of the things that's led to is explosive growth in person-to-person connectivity. So this is just a chart that shows global population, internet users, active social media users, 2.8 billion. Facebook, of which we were joking about earlier. I do not have a Facebook account. I have Instagram, Twitter, but not Facebook. I'm in Justin's camp. I'll delegate that to my wife. She'll tell me what's happening. But Facebook, 2 billion active users of Facebook. Incredible. Unique mobile users, 4.9 billion. Active mobile social media users, 2.5 billion. Some 62% of Americans, according to one survey, get some, okay, that's a vague, but some or all of their news from social media. I certainly have friends who use Twitter simply to stay abreast of what's happening in the world, right? 30 billion pieces of content shared on Facebook each month. About a year ago or so, I spent about 6 months working with Google, their X-Project guys, on this project called Project Loon. This is, the idea now is 50% of the world's population being connected is completely inadequate. Google, through their X-Project, they could now call them Google X, I guess, but has developed this program to provide internet access worldwide. The reason I was working on this is because it's a Nokia cell site, basically, that operates on this balloon to provide connectivity everywhere. Whether this project is successful or not is a huge question mark. I don't think the business case is there, but it just shows you how the quest to get mobile connectivity to the world continues. Question mark here on whether this is really connectivity at all, right? Yes, we're connected to something, but what is it we're connected with? This is a survey that says, on average, about 2,000 participants, on average per day, what do you interact with the most, right? Full population here in red, millennials in blue. So 39% of millennials said they interact with their smartphone more than their significant other, more than friends, parents, children, coworkers, etc. Okay, here's an interesting quote from the Nokia's chief marketing officer. I have not met Barry French, but he says, there's no doubt that technology brings greater efficiency to our lives. Maybe we should use that extra time not to spend more time on the smartphone playing more video games, but to deeply connect with others and better understand ourselves. Now, this is not necessarily Nokia's philosophy, but it's nonetheless an interesting quote in terms of some reflection, some critical thinking on the world around us and the effect that technology has had. Final slide here on the past 27 years, just some question marks in terms of the impact of this technology. It's clearly led to incredible economic growth. The internet, quote unquote, economy is worth some $3 trillion today. Huge increase in personal efficiency. You think about the world pre-nav, you think about the world pre-search, pre-Google. You think about the amount of messaging and so forth that we can do today, I mean, when we needed to find someone, we went to the library, because chances are we'd find them there, right, Mike? That was a social hub. It's had a huge impact in terms of uniting people and ideas. I mean, I'll confess, even myself, right? I follow Dordt football and some other things on Instagram, and to be able to see Coach Penner's blog here a couple of weeks ago on the narrow road was awesome, right? I feel like I can get a glimpse into what the football program here is about, not just in terms of the stats, but about what it's really about. So clearly, incredible impact in terms of that. At the same time, as people are being united and ideas are being united, we see devaluing of relationships, of engagement, of community, right? There's been countless studies now on the social impact, the emotional impact of excessive social media usage and cell phone usage and that sort of thing. On the one hand, all this connectedness in the world has created a much higher level of awareness, right? We can almost do nothing today without having some video clip of it show up somewhere. But it's also created, you know, a tremendous sense of awareness of what's happening in the world around us on a moment-by-moment basis. At the same time that that's happening, there's also a blurring of reality. There's almost a lack, conversely, a lack of community that comes from being digitally connected, but without developing those deep relationships with people that Barry French mentioned on that earlier quote. There's a sense of personal empowerment. You know, very few people in Brazil, for example, had their own bank account some years ago. But because of mobile pay systems and mobile banking, and because of a tremendous growth in cellular penetration in Brazil, now most people, while they may not have a mailing address, they have a bank account. And their identity for that bank account is their mobile phone. On the one hand, we see a growth in personal empowerment, like I mentioned, but at the same time, there's a huge growth in the power of internet companies. And certainly, we have read about that. We see that in the press. As I mentioned earlier, Facebook has some 2 billion active users, right? That potentially, and some of my colleagues believe this, that potentially makes Mark Zuckerberg the most powerful man on the planet, right? There's no country who has 2 billion citizens. But Facebook has 2 billion active users. It puts a tremendous amount of power to shape ideas and opinions and so forth in the hands of potentially a few. We see a growth in personalization on the one hand. Google knows a tremendous amount about you and me. Tremendous amount about you and me. And they personalize what we see based on that content. But so that's on one side. On the other side, we see a tremendous increase in globalization. Right, the ability to market ideas and products globally used to be a very significant endeavor. Now it can happen overnight. There are even some who say that the concept of nations, sovereign nations, you know, that concept is at risk in the future because of this level of connectivity and this level of globalization, that the idea of national governments might become outdated and obsolete, and that at some point there could be a move towards a one world sort of government. Okay, enough about that though. I don't want to get too carried away into speculation. I'm not a technologist, I'm not a futurist, right? But I can tell you from my point of view and my role in connecting people, right? And to seeking to always do that in a more seamless fashion so that you are always connected to information wherever you are all the time, that has had an impact on our culture. And while I'm not a student of that impact, I certainly can observe it in the world around us, as can you. So a little bit about where we're going. So another quote from Dr. Adams: technology has always played a significant role in the development of cultures. The major problems of the next 50 years will be those brought about by misdirected technology. So I was thinking at this point when I'm putting these thoughts together, okay, I got to think of a really good example of misdirected technology, right? So one of the thoughts that occurred to me and that I was going to share tonight, and then I found out it's going to be like on the web, right? But the example that I was going to use when I was a sophomore student here at Dordt, a couple of us guys were sitting around on Friday afternoon and we were thinking, and we're really frustrated with this whole dating deal. You know, it's such a stochastic process. We need to make it more deterministic. So you're thinking about, well, you know, the problem with dating is that it's non-scientific. I hope you guys are having these same discussions, by the way. If you're not, there's something wrong. Come talk to me afterwards. But so we're thinking we got to make this way more deterministic than it is. So we thought about ways to apply control systems theory, right, to greatly improve the feedback loop and responsiveness of the process. We thought about, we decided to apply some communications theory technology. I can't tell you what we did because I'm not exactly sure it was legal, but from a technical point of view, it was a smashing success. Worked great. From a sociological point of view, it was an absolute disaster. You know, the one thing we learned in that is that some unknowns, especially when it comes to that whole dating deal, some unknowns are best left unknown. So anyway, but the example that I came up with was this. I've been in Japan a lot, working with some Asian customers there. And this is actually, if you recognize this, this is a toilet. This is a toilet, typical control panel on a toilet in Japan. And there's lots of buttons on this thing. And you know, this definitely applies. I mean, I'm an engineer, right? So there's buttons, man. You push the button. You know, doesn't matter you don't know what it does. You'll find out. You know what? Don't push the buttons, man. I mean, what's the point of walking into a bathroom stall and already having the toilet seat preheated for you? That's just wrong. So there's buttons on this thing that do things I won't even talk about. There's even noise cancellation. Well, it's not really noise cancellation. You push a button and it simulates the flushing sound, so that if you need to mask some unpleasant noises, you just hit that button. You know? So anyway, I don't know, maybe that's misdirected technology. To me it is, maybe it's not. This is another example of tech. I mean, this is actually from one of our customers. I was making a presentation to them a couple of months ago, Japanese customer, and they use this as a use case for technology I'll talk about in a second. But basically, sensors are going everywhere. And they were proud of this example of a toilet that recognizes human presence. It measures your sojourn time. That means how long you're actually on the toilet. And based on that, it has some sort of an algorithm to determine how much water it should use when flushing. That's no joke, though. That's a legitimate application. Well, I don't know about legitimate, but that is an application of technology in Japan right now. No, but seriously, there's a tremendous amount of discussion. You know, this is one example. SoftBank is one of Nokia's customers. I've worked with them quite a bit in the past. SoftBank recently announced that they'd be raising $100 billion over the next 20 years to invest in the CEO's vision of the singularity. The singularity is the supposed point where computer intelligence surpasses human intelligence. And this, their CEO, son, has been a tremendously successful businessman. He believes we're just 30 years away from it. Another perspective, humanistic perspective from Elon Musk. You know who Elon Musk is? You know, Tesla and Solar City and SpaceX and all that stuff. He says, I think human extinction will probably occur and technology will likely play a part in this. In the end, the machines will win. Well, our response is one normed by faith, right? What is faith? It's certain knowledge, like the Heidelberg Catechism says, certain knowledge and hearty trust, right? That everything that God has revealed in his word is true and it applies to me as his servant. And this is from Isaiah 48. Listen to me, O Jacob, and Israel whom I called. I am he, I am the first, and I am the last. My hand laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand spread out the heavens. When I call to them, they stand forth together. So from we see no fear in what Elon Musk sees and in what the CEO of SoftBank sees. Our knowledge is certain. and our trust is hearty that we serve a sovereign God. When he calls, the heavens and the earth stand forth together. So that is our foundation. But what I would like to suggest here this evening is that as we think about leadership 2 years ago, as we think about calling last year, that there are, nevertheless, explosive technologies that are before us and actively being worked on now that I'd like to challenge us to think about. And especially some of you students, to weigh whether God is calling you to help direct this technology in a way that brings glory to the God who created it, right? I think some would say that Christians to far too great of an extent surrendered the last 2 centuries to the modern viewpoint and to faith in science instead of faith in God and the God who created science. And so I'm here tonight to try to encourage us to think about ways in which we can prepare young men and in which we can strategically engage in some of these technologies. Again, this is from my perspective as an electrical engineer working in cellular communication space, right? You will undoubtedly have perspectives coming that of other areas in which we need to equally engage. But some of them are listed here, just 7 areas. Big data, extracting information out of large data sets. 90% of CEOs recently surveyed said that big data, exploiting their data, is one of their top priorities moving forward. Natural language processing, we're now at a point where neural networks and so forth are being used to interpret our languages. Google Assistant uses a neural net for language processing, so that the interface between us and the computerized world around us is now much more encompassing than it used to be. You used to have to sit down at a keyboard. Now you can have a Google Assistant in your home or an Amazon Echo or whatever who's listening to every word you say, right? And using that as your interface into the connected world. Huge advances in computer vision and recognition. You can see that even on Facebook, right? Or Instagram, how it is finding the people in your pictures. Incredible advances in virtual reality. Facebook, just today, I think, Mark Zuckerberg said he wants to bring virtual reality to 1 billion people, right? That's his goal. Automation. I was at the Newark airport a couple of weeks ago. Stopped at the food court, huge number of restaurants there. You walk up, you order your food on a touchpad. You never interface with a person once. You order your food from a touchpad, the food comes out. There's a whole bunch of these restaurants in the food court there. It slaps a sticker on it. You go to a kiosk, you pay with your credit card. You never have to talk to a person once, right? Artificial intelligence. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The only space that I'm actively involved with is this space, mobile communications and the Internet of Things. Okay, so some of the technology that Nokia is working on in this space, CAD-M, narrowband, LTE, and so forth, is designed so that for basically a $10 part, right, with a 10-year battery life, you can stick on anything to have it be connected to the internet. So extremely energy efficient, super high coding gains and low bandwidth sort of stuff, but very, very power efficient. So you can put a sensor now on anything, have it connect without wires to the world for very little money. So that's the next big thing that we're working on in the cellular space. This is a chart on that shows machine-to-machine communication and its trends. So number of places, number of things that are people that are connected, number of things, exponential. This is the number of connected devices in billions. We're here somewhere between, these are admittedly some of the higher estimates out there, somewhere between 10 and 18 billion devices connected today. Projected growth to somewhere upwards of 50 billion by 2025. Okay, this is everything from sensors in your refrigerator to traffic cams to wearable technology, right? You know, you've seen probably the insurance company ads for plugging the module into your OBD sensor on your car so that they can collect information about your driving patterns, right? Characteristics, whether you're a safe driver or not. You know, it's all that, those sorts of things in the connected world. So the last few years, it's been people-to-people connectivity, right? Moving forward, huge explosions in machine-to-machine connectivity. So what do you do with all that data? That's this area of big data. Nokia is also working on this from the perspective of providing our cellular operators the ability to get a whole lot more information about you as a cellular user so they can exploit that information for value-added activities, right? So it's all about extracting value from extremely large data sets. How large are these data sets? Well, no one data set is this large, but when you think about the amount of digital data in the world, it's stunning. 2.7 zettabytes, I didn't even know that was a thing. 2.7 times 10 to the 21 bytes of data exist in the digital universe today, according to one estimate. To put this in perspective, if you put that into HD movies, it would take you 47 million years to watch them. According to one technologist, Bernard Marr, more data was created in the past 2 years than in the entire previous history of the human race. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the point is, it's explosive in terms of its growth rate. Okay, just one more area here before we move on to more of the point. The future, next 10 to 20 years. I'm excited to see projects in robotics, by the way. Automation isn't all about robotics, of course, but it's neat that you guys are doing that. I think that's fantastic. I want to encourage you to continue to do that. But this shows a chart that shows what impact automation may have in the next 10 to 20 years. The solid portions of these bars are the reduction in jobs being replaced by automation. I'd already mentioned the kiosk that I was at in terms of retail salespersons. They didn't exist in the food court in the Newark airport, right? But you see a number of, and again, these are all projections, but according to some, more than 50% of today's jobs lost to automation. You know, transportation alone represents 9% of the US economy. Huge amount of people employed in transportation and transportation services. You know, it's not inconceivable at this point that the large majority of those jobs will disappear, right? They'll be automated. That has led to questions about what's the impact on society as a result of this. Finland right now, which is where Nokia is based, out of Finland, they just started a trial with universal national salary. Okay, now it's only a trial, but it's designed to provide a salary to every individual, right? Regardless of their capability, regardless of whether they're pursuing employment or not, it's just a salary. And there are some, especially in the technology space, who say this will be inevitable because so many jobs being replaced by technology and too few people equipped, right, to enter into those technology roles that are remaining, that the answer has to be, well, let's just provide everyone with a paycheck because efficiencies will improve so much through technology, right, that not everyone will need to work to maintain a certain standard of living. So let's just solve the problem that way. You can see how from our perspective, it'd be absolutely devastating, right? We're called to a purpose and to a task. It's wired into us by our Creator. To take that purpose away would have devastating consequences. But in any case, okay, what are the opportunities? Well, one opportunity, and I'm also not a philosopher, okay, but one opportunity that potentially exists, a window, is the shift from modernism to postmodernism. And when you look at how postmodernism is defined, you know, here's one definition, right? That all of life, it's an acknowledgement that all of life's experiences, this is not a Christian definition, this is just a definition. All of life's experiences are colored by one's worldview or perspective. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? There's no absolute truth or objective reality. Well, of course, we would unequivocally disagree with that statement. But it's still nonetheless a shift away from faith and science as absolute truth. There's no reality except that which we construct from our worldview, whereas modernism would say that the only valid worldview is one based on faith and science. And there's an emphasis on holism in a postmodern world. So this shift in thinking, maybe perhaps not so much in our fields yet, but certainly in the arts and in the humanities and so forth, right, potentially provides an opening for us to present a worldview that we hold to as truth, right? We can fill a void because, again, our Creator wired us to know that there's truth. We can fill this void left by supposed absence of truth, right? An acknowledgement that all of life's experiences are colored by one worldview or perspective. Potentially, if you're an optimist, provides an opening for a discussion on the worldview that we hold to. Right? So possibilities. This is also interesting in terms of challenging us to think about where to strategically engage from a technology perspective in the world around us. This is DeepMind, company, daughter company of Alphabet, right? Google, think Google. Project by Google, DeepMind. They're involved in all sorts of artificial intelligence projects, right? Of which Google is a world leader in artificial intelligence, right? Being able to figure out what you want and what you're about, right? Potentially the objective is before you even know it, right? So helping they have a chapter or a division, I don't know, department called Ethics in Society, helping technologists put ethics into practice. I highlighted this statement. They say technology is not value neutral. Well, maybe not all of you have taken Engineering 390 yet, but you will certainly hear this, right? Technology is value laden. So the question for us is, could we have a voice in these discussions? Okay, great. Our peers are finally admitting that technology is not neutral, that it's value laden. Okay, let's have a discussion about what values are appropriate, right? What values are of greatest benefit to mankind? IEEE just last year started, and I'm not well versed in this, but I want to find out more about it, started IEEE Tech Ethics, exploring the ethical and societal implications of technology. All right, fantastic. This company, founded by Elon Musk and others, a $1 billion funding commitment, OpenAI. You might have seen here a while back that, okay, I'm not a fan of Dota. How many of you guys play Dota? Anybody? All right, good. I'm so relieved to see that. Anyway, it's some computer game, strategy game, right? And but anyway, OpenAI developed artificial intelligence, neural net sort of based approach to beat the world champion in Dota. Supposedly a great achievement because it's a quite sophisticated game here just recently. But anyway, OpenAI, our goal is to advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. That's an interesting perspective, right? I can't vouch for its authenticity, but it's an interesting perspective. I wish this wasn't all garbled. I apologize for that. Somehow that happened. So the question for us, I think, or at least a question that I've been struggling with some personally, is how, at what point, how can we discern where we might engage strategically in these spaces? These things that we've talked about, the development of much more sophisticated algorithms for harvesting the data that we leave behind us every day in the digital universe, right? The application of big data approaches, automation, right? Self-driving cars, self-driving trucks, all these things. I don't know the future, but it seems quite likely that they happen, right? There will be huge advances in these spaces over the next 2 decades. The question for us is, can we participate in them, right? We can either run away from them and leave them to others to develop, or we can think about ourselves as Charlie Adams challenged his students to think about themselves as Daniels, right? Daniel certainly, I would think, had no confidence that he was going to make a difference in Babylon when he was sold into captivity there, right? But he did, to 3 kings in succession behind him, right? He had a tremendous impact. And so the question for us is, how might we think of ourselves as Daniels? How might we equip a generation of Daniels to make meaningful contributions in these spaces, to help direct this technology, which has tremendous potential to be misdirected, right? But how might we direct it? Might there be an opportunity for us to have a voice in these types of forums, right? I don't know, but it seems like there's a possibility that we should explore it. You know, Elon Musk, here's a man with a worldview, right? He absolutely has a worldview that to me, it seems he's quite consistent in executing towards, right? He wants to save humanity. He wants to solve the global energy, fossil fuel dependency. He wants to do all those things, right? From all appearances, I don't believe he has a Christian worldview, right? But he absolutely has a worldview that he believes in firmly. He was asked a while back, when you started Tesla, did you think it would succeed? Perhaps the verdict is still out on Tesla, but it's gotten a whole lot farther than anyone would have ever thought possible. You talk about a capital-intensive industry, making automobiles. You start about starting a brand new player in that field, using a radically different technology, right? But he was asked, did you think that you would succeed? And he said, quite honestly, he goes, I didn't think that I would. They asked him, well, why did you do it? He said, because I believed it was far too important to not do. Right, so there's a man, granted he's a billionaire, but there's a man who was so convicted by his perspective and by his worldview, and he was willing to throw away his track record, right, and fail because he thought his calling toward that task was so important that he had to do it. Right? It's a challenge for us. Okay, so again, these are the areas. One perspective on areas for potential strategic engagement by us to shape these technologies that, at least I believe from my involvement in the industry, will have an enormous impact, much like the internet, much like the smartphone and so forth that I've participated in have had in the past 20 years. I'm going to close with this because, again, this is our foundation. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God, from Psalm 20, verse 7. Okay. I was asked to put together a couple of discussion questions. Let me just sort of frame these for us. The first one is really broad, right? But I provided a little bit perspective here this evening from the field that I'm in terms of what I see as potential risks of misdirected technology or where the opportunities might be in the next 5 to 25 years. Question number 2 is probably, quoting again Charlie Adams and exercising our worldview. Our task is to bring healing and redirection to our world. Our role is world formative. Okay, world formative. So a question for us, and I think one that we could spend a little bit more time on, is how might we be more effective in this role? And maybe even more importantly, how might we better position our roles towards the most world formative areas? So I'd be very interested to hear what your thoughts are. Where are the areas that need our strategic engagement in order to be world formative around us? Now, I want to be clear about something. For one, all callings are equal, right? My wife was a music major at Dordt. She's raised, to a large extent, our 4 children, right? She's a high school varsity volleyball coach now, right? There are many days when I think to myself that my wife is having a far greater impact on our world by doing what she's doing than me doing what I'm doing, right? So our callings, they're unique, they're given by God, they're equally important in service to our King, right? So I want to make sure that comes across clearly in my comments here this evening. I also want us to think about how might we prepare, equip Daniels, and particularly to give them strategic nudges, to ask them, have you thought about contributing in this area? Have you thought about working in this area? And I would ask you, as you get further in your career, I've had opportunities in my recent past, for example, to go work for Apple about 6 years ago. I decided at that time to not take that position because I didn't believe it was in the best interest of my family to relocate to the Bay Area, right? But I wonder now sometimes if I may have been more effective in my role and being more world formative in some of these areas if I had done that instead of stayed at Nokia. Now, God in His providence didn't take me there. I'm still with Nokia. But I would challenge you to think strategically about your own careers, you students, right? When you have those opportunities, ask yourself that question. And I know that's drilled into you here at Dordt, the servant mindset. But ask yourself, okay, Lord, show me if I go in this direction with my career. Show me whether that will help me to be more effective potentially within your kingdom in a more strategic area, right? To be a Daniel in Babylon. Ask yourself that question. I wish I had asked myself that question more in my 27 years in the industry, but ask yourself that question. So that's number 2. And then number 3, that really deals with this. Where are the opportunities to strengthen our cohesiveness and effectiveness as members of Christ's body? Okay? Thank you.
Well, those are really challenging questions. In following up a wonderful presentation, I want to probably speed up the discussion time a little bit more than what we've done sometimes in the past, since we are a little bit later, maybe than what the schedule was going to be, and that's fine. I think it's been a wonderful evening, but let's take just about 5 minutes at your table to either write individually or sort of engage with each other at the table these questions, and then let's take a little bit of a time as a group, because I think that is one of the really valuable things of this group, to hear each other, right, and to challenge each other. So just take a few minutes to look at the questions on the white sheet. The white sheet has the same questions that you see up here, and let's challenge each other a little bit at our tables with these questions.
there's a physical limit to any growth. Which means the products why are we using it? Paid for by advertising, which is built into the cost of the product, and yet Amazon is providing you that having a human service in the stores, like Sears and the stores are all blown up, and even Walmart is kind of blown up. And something like that. Well, I would say that each department store must be like, this is not one state, never mind the whole, all the stuff that sits in here. Right? So that's a good side.
I guess I look at me like jobs, how much people work, time to do what that's the big one. Well, that's the question of it. Yeah.
And number two, it probably may or may not be real meaningful correction job. It's great to go But to have the ability to have a culture in which technology some problems to earn a living wage just sitting around on your machine, device. Social media basis. Our bodies are people
I don't think our discussion at our table was done, and your discussion probably is not finished either. We could probably talk about these things all night long, and hopefully we keep thinking about them all night long for sure. But I do want to respect all of our times too. So let's try to share. We probably have time for just maybe one or two tables to sort of share thoughts on each of the questions. And let's just kind of walk through. So kind of do it on a first come, first serve. So use the most eager to share related to each, and we'll see how this goes. So the first question, any table or individual who would really like to share something that was specifically striking or helpful about your conversation on the first question? I can assign if I need to.
Using technology, kind of forcing, well, you're going to buy this product in 2 years or 3 years, so make sure that you need a new one, and some of that.
I can't get too sidetracked, but I have to say this idea of disposable sorts of things is especially striking to me right now, since my refrigerator and washing machine have both died in the last, 4 days. What is this? Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can't afford to replace the compressor on the refrigerator because the refrigerator costs the same price as the compressor, basically. So I hear you.
Up here is that the concentration of our information servers, like the Googles and so on, that tailor what you see, as was mentioned, by what you've already seen and appear to want to see more of, that just kind of drives us all into narrow interest silos. And there, could there be a way where you can actively, and there are ways, I gather, but that you can actually make that more diffuse, and what's the effect on the whole population? That's a risk. And we've seen it already.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other specific? Yes.
With artificial intelligence, it's got a lot of opportunity in that area to build in value. There's, I think, more so, all of these areas have that built-in values, but that's one where it's built in hard, and there's a lot of opportunity for it. What I'm seeing is a lot of the people out there who are talking about what's behind that, making it ethical, is it's pragmatism and not a real truth-based foundation. And so then you get into what's practical to me, how do you decide what's practical? And then I'm also aware that I spent time as a software engineer, and I know that code almost never does what you want it to do. So even if you build in the right values, how are you going to make sure that it behaves like it's supposed to? So that's a huge area that's ripe for a lot of misdirected technology and results.
Yeah, misdirected technology, and actually maybe that's a nice transition to also maybe an area that's ripe for a Christian voice, right? And to give us an opportunity to speak to that. So let's take a look at question 2. How might we become effective in the role of bringing healing and redirection, this world formative nature? Thoughts on number 2? What sort of ideas did you have?
I guess, yeah, one thing we talked about is
choosing what things you put in front of people when you're presenting options to people is one way.
Yeah, being intentional about sort of thinking of yeah, what choices you're giving. Yeah, very good. I'm looking at you guys yet. I don't think I've heard from a peer yet either, so I could go to the point at these two tables too.
We had I'd say it's a response that kind of tied 2 and 3 together, because I think, you know, some of the ways that we could be effective align with the opportunities available. And so Ari was talking about a little bit on how, you know, in order to say if you're, you know, seeking to bend the path of the development for a large corporation, needing to make sure that you're staying tied to a community, community that holds you accountable, a community that helps you grow and you know, maintain your principles.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a lot of that discussion at our table too, with I think both 2 and 3, if being intentional about who you are associating with, and intentional about how those can provide opportunities to the situations you put yourself in.
About the same issue, so it's probably pretty important for number 2.
Oh, very good. Any other important pieces for 2, or that does lead into number 3 as well? So, oh, Kim, yeah.
Well, we didn't get to discuss this because of time, but one thing that was said was that all callings are equal, and that's something that I've talked to other engineers that aren't Dordt engineers, and they seem to think that the only calling that's valuable is like business and engineering. And I think we really need to fight that, especially as an environmental engineer. We run into problems where it's a matter of values as far as what choices get made. And the only way to change values is to talk about it. And engineers don't talk about it. So the people that aren't called to talk about these values, we should be encouraging them.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Thanks for sharing that. And that, yeah, the point of the callings being equal is wonderful too, right? I mean, that's I lots of times try to push my students on, you're going to get into this weird world where the engineers are higher than the drafters, who are higher than the receptionists and whatever, all of this. But everybody is very important, right? And if you recognize that, it helps you work as a team better, right? And be more effective and work as a body and push against that culture, right? That is the culture. Oh, thanks. Any other thoughts on either 2 or 3 before we start to wind down?
Contradiction, in that it seems like there's a lot of electronic opportunities to connect and become more cohesive as a group. Then it just dawned on us, there's just something about looking each other in the face and being in each other's presence that also seems to be lost if you seems to be lost if it's electronic only. So maybe that's something about the way we're created. But so we left ourselves wondering, yeah, opportunities, but at the same time, maybe we can't forget sitting across the table from one another too. When you have opportunities to do so, there's something that does.
We talked about that a little bit too. I think that sort of brought us back to the intentionality part of it, like just trying so hard to be diligent and intentional about why we're using the technology, and if we're using it in a way to stay connected with someone who's across the country, or in a way to disconnect from someone across the table, right? And just all those questions that come with that. It's a challenge, right? And that's why we are talking about it. Any other closing thoughts? I appreciate the discussion here. I think this could keep yeah, hopefully this continues lots of conversations right over the next couple of days as we see each other maybe around here in the next couple of days, but in other ways too as we continue on. Yes.
And, ultimately, a lot of what we're talking about comes back to heart issues. And one of the things we've talked about briefly is that it's got to come back to the gospel. And it's difficult sometimes to talk with people at your workplace and other engineers about the gospel, but if you're just arguing points, if you're not tying it back to something, of course the Holy Spirit works in the heart, but if we're not carrying the gospel as part of this, then we missed it.
Amen. Yeah. Oh, thank you. This might be an anticlimactic way to end, but I really want to give you about 2 or 3 minutes at least to look at this sheet, the yellowish buff colored sheet, and just, you don't necessarily have to fill the entire thing out, but please take a look at that and give us some feedback, the DCES committees, on ideas that you might have for us for DCES for the future, and ways that you might get involved. So I'm going to give you maybe just about 2 minutes to do that, and then I will close in prayer after that. So let's, I want to, before you scatter though, give you a little bit of focus time just to fill that sheet out. Yeah, the seniors in this room, you don't get to do your own presentation critique, so sorry. All right, I see a few pens going yet. I'll give you 30 seconds or so. But no, actually, in all seriousness, if you'd like to give more detailed feedback, you're very welcome to do that. You can take this and email thoughts to me after the fact, but I'll just leave what you've filled out here, unless you're planning to elaborate more and would like to scan them or email me your responses later, and we'll pick them up from here afterwards. And it's getting to be a really kind of nice collection of material that we have as I go through the material over the last couple of years and sort of continue to think about what direction that God might have in store for the society. And I actually should mention, I forgot to mention, but the first Defender Days dinner that we did 3 years ago, that was where Mike Vanderwell here did the video interview with us. So that was sort of part of the first program, and it's fun to have him here in person this year, and one of the main folks involved with our Defender Days here. But thanks. I want to say thanks to everyone who helped with everything here tonight. Thanks to the EDA folks for giving us the tour, along with Tony, who's not here anymore this evening, but trust that that was a neat experience to sort of see some of those new spaces. Definitely thanks to the seniors for being there and sharing your projects with us. Maybe you got a little bit of insight there, but certainly I heard lots of excitement from the alumni. The senior design projects are a little bit different now than they were 30 years ago, right? So there might be a slight bit of jealousy there, but no, you guys have some good projects. And then, yeah, thank you very much again to Jonathan for challenging us here. I think you left us a lot to think about, and much appreciated. So let's give all these folks a round of applause then. All right, why don't I close in prayer? Our Father, we thank you for this place. We thank you for gathering us together here in this place. And we thank you for the opportunity to be able to network with each other, even in person, face to face. We know that technology helps us to stay connected in certain ways, but being here together in this room allows us to be connected in even a different and perhaps a deeper way. Father, we thank you for from this place, having Dordt engineering alumni that have spread out all over the country and across the globe. And we pray that you might help us to strive to always be Christ-centered in what we do, that you might help us to be able to discern the winds of technology and how all technology is value-laden, and how you even put us in particular places and particular circumstances to be an agent of renewal in these ways, and how you uniquely equip us perhaps as engineers to serve in some of these roles. But Father, we thank you too for your church, for this body of believers who all serve together in order to bring the gospel, Father, and to shine the healing and renewal that can come only through the gospel in all of these areas that we've discussed, and so many more areas too that are part of this creation and part of the development of this creation, of your creation, through the works of our hands. We pray that you might help us to hold each other up, that you might help us to continue to grow together, that you might help us to continue to grow in our obedience in recognizing the call that you place before us to use your world responsibly and to strive to bring the light of the gospel message as we do so. Father, please bless us here this evening, the next few days with all the activities around campus, and we thank you for this opportunity, and we pray that the activities might be enjoyable, that they might be productive, and that all might be done to your glory. Father, we pray all of these things in the name of Christ our Savior. Amen. Thank you very much.